Hello, folks. This is Sal Vasta with the 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame, sitting down with Bob Rascia of the infamous 45s. Bob, how many years were the 45s together? That's the first thing I'd like to know.
The 45s have had a team in softball for 51 years. The original 45s team started in 1966, and there was a continuous flow. I first was on the 45s in like 82, 83, and at that point, guys you knew, Mike and Tommy LeVar, they were running the team. Their brother, Pat LeVar, was the alderman of the 45th Ward. The original team, all the players lived in the 45th Ward, which is Tommy Lyons, who was the committeeman, who I met his son later in life, who was a prosecutor, and now he's a judge. So that's the genesis of the team was the 45th Ward, and I was the link from the LeVar brothers to the current team, and now like Izzy Sanchez is still on the team, Keith Filkins, Marty Dozen, those were guys, Tony Portencaso, those are guys that were part of my 45 team. So there's always been a continuous flow. 51 years.
Wow. That is amazing, 51 years. You know, my Blues teams were together for about 3 decades or so, and I thought that was a long time. 51 years is amazing. Obviously, you went through a lot more ball players than I did because, you know, to be competitive, as you know, back in our day, teams were stealing each other's players, and the competition was fierce. There was always 20, 30 strong teams fighting it out in every tournament, and you have many titles between national tournaments, Forest Park No Gloves Nationals, and all the major leagues you've played in with the Mount Prospects and the Clarendon Parks and all that. What comes to mind to you, you think, in overall these years? What are the 1 or 2 teams that you're most proud of?
Well, the first time we won the Forest Park tournament in 1996, on the final day, in order to win the tournament, we had to play and obviously beat. Earliest game of the day, I think, was the Dollhouse, which I think that was
my team.
Yeah, but you were a top team.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
The best teams that year were Dollhouse, Splinters, and Lettuce, and we were kind of the fourth tier of that group.
Right.
But on that final day, we beat you guys, then we beat Splinters, and then we beat Lettuce. And I your memory fades a little bit, but I can probably, if I was able to find the actual scores, I think we won every game that we played the entire weekend by 1 or 2 runs. They were all low-scoring games. We didn't have a strong hitting team, but we could catch the ball. And that's what kept us in the games. And, that was a big thing to us. We had won a couple other tournaments that year, had a good run in the Nationals, ended up losing in the winner's bracket final to Lettuce, and then we lost the comeback game. Splinters beat us in extra innings, and we finished in third. But that was a huge accomplishment for that team at that time because we weren't nearly as strong as the other teams were that year.
It's always sweet when you beat those top teams on the way to a title.
Well, that and the fact that when you win something with what I would say are your guys, not guys that matriculated from another team or that you begged to come. These were our guys, the Kiesel brothers, Tony Portencaso, Larry Downs, Robbie Graff. These were 45 guys. They didn't play for anybody else.
The Stouts?
Mike Stout, the Kiesel brothers, Billy Moran. Those were all our guys. They didn't come from other teams. And then, things, as you know, Sal, you were around a long time. You went from being the guy as a manager that you were chasing guys down, hey, come and play with us, come and play with us. Well, by the 2000s, when we were winning, there were years, there were maybe 14 events. We won 13 of the 14 events, which kind of haunted us because it was our goal to win every event. And actually, the one thing we didn't win that year was this tournament because everybody went out and got drunk on a Friday night. But, that's always been a kind of a sore spot with me. But we went through a span where our record, like in the Nationals, when we won the 5 in a row, I think we had a record. Kabicki told me this one time. We went 56-2 over that 5 years to win those titles.
Amazing.
And then, at that point, by like '01, when we started winning everything, we no longer had to call anybody. Guys were calling us nonstop. Hey, I want to be on the team. I want to be. We legitimately had to say no to people because we weren't going to push somebody off of our team to take somebody else. If somebody left or they didn't want to play anymore, then we brought somebody in. But those last 6, 7, 8 years, I never had to call anybody.
All the top teams had a nucleus, just like you did, and you kind of filter in 1 or 2 new guys every year, but you had a tremendous nucleus, and a lot of loyalty is involved, and I'm sure you felt that you expected the same loyalty in return from your players.
Well, after that little blip in '96, where the nucleus of the team was like Larry Downs and Mike Stout, the Kiesel brothers, a few years later, Ricky Gankars out of nowhere called me up and he said, hey, I want to come and play for you. I got a couple of guys that want to come with. And some of the other guys like Kurt and Eric, they kind of wanted to give it up at that point, so it made it easy. And everybody wanted to play with Ricky. Legitimately, Ricky was maybe one of the best players that ever played. But it wasn't only what he did on the field, it was the entertainment value after the game, which drew a lot of guys. Hey, I want to hang out with Ricky. My best memories were when Frank and Danny Mastari were on the team with Ricky. The constant battles between me and Frank, because I would kind of stick up for Ricky and Frank would always, this guy's, you can't even play this guy. He's not ready to play. But we won, and it didn't really matter. And then, Jimmy Matlock, one of your old guys, and Jeff Berger came to the team, and that was a whole new dynamic. In fact, one of the funniest things, we had a tradition. Every year before the Nationals, we would have a big dinner at my house. Steaks from Stockyard. There were 16-ounce strip steaks. I'd cook. My wife would cook. And we did this thing every year. Every guy had to take a turn and sit in a bar stool in my yard, and they'd have to get up there and talk. Because, Sal, you know how it is. You go through a whole season, 4 or 5 guys are always doing all the talking. There's some guys, if I had to do a voice recognition, I wouldn't even know their voice because they never talk. So this was an opportunity. Every single guy had to get up there and say something about the experience of the season, or we used to do a thing, we'd write a question and put it in a hat, and you'd have to pick it out and you had to answer the question. We had a lot of fun with that. Well, one particular year, I think it was like the first year that Berger was with us, my cousin Nicky gets up there and he goes, and Nicky would design a T-shirt for us for the National, Nicky Pinto. So he designs this shirt, it's got the 45 logo in pinstripes. And everybody's like, what's this all about? So Nicky gets up there and he goes, we're like the Yankees of softball. I'm like, Nick, you shouldn't even say
Don't be starting trouble.
Right. He goes, no, I don't mean it that way. He goes, we got a third baseman that thinks he should be the shortstop. He was talking about Berger. And Frank was laughing, but Jeff wasn't laughing. But those are the memories. Most of my memories were having that dinner every year, listening to what guys had to say about the season, what their expectations were.
It was amazing. I think a comment that I'd like to make that you would agree with is the relationships and the camaraderie, not only with your own players, but with all the competing teams over all those years. I can walk into Forest Park 15 years later and still see some of the same familiar faces, and it's like we never left the game.
Well, the funniest thing that happens to me is there's a lot of South Side guys that work for the county. They work at the jail. They work in the courthouse. And these are guys I really didn't know on a first-name basis. But I'll be walking through the jail to visit a client. Hey, you're the guy from the 45s, which is actually kind of funny.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out to Forest Park. We never ever want to miss these tournaments, so we always try to make a brief appearance. Thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you down the road.